opportunity to step up and prove that, look, we have not had the season that we've wanted to so far, but we are not a team that's going to go away lightly. And if we play the way that Carolina basketball is supposed to play, then we're going to have a chance to, win any game that's left on our schedule. And, I think it's a possibility that it can happen. Maybe, this is a huge motivator, especially with the fact that they know now that Cole Anthony is not coming back anytime soon. And maybe some of those other guys will step up, like Armando and Garrison and Brandon Robinson. Maybe some of those guys step forward and have big games. They're going to need it. They're going to need it if they're going to pull out the victory.
Yeah, we've seen Carolina in these situations rise to the occasion and find ways to win. I mentioned the win at Michigan State in the 2013-14 season. That team also beat Louisville and Kentucky. All three of those teams started the season ranked preseason 1, 2, and 3. And that was a Carolina team that finished middle of the road in the ACC and flamed out early in March. So it's possible. I don't think it happens. I think Gonzaga wins, and I'm not going to blame it because Carolina's without Cole Anthony, and you're probably going to be without Leaky Black. I think Gonzaga's the better team, and it kills me to say that. But I think they're better. I think their players are better coached. I don't think Mark Few is a better coach than Roy Williams. I think his team has bought into the message. They've bought into what they're trying to accomplish because they're trying to break through. They made the Final Four 2 years ago, didn't get the job done. They're trying to finally bring home a national championship to the best mid-major program in college basketball. You've seen that in their play so far. So I think Gonzaga wins. I think Carolina keeps it competitive because Carolina's not going to get blown out. When it happens, it comes to a shock to the system because it doesn't happen. I think you're going to take some things away from Carolina that'll be positive because you need guys like Anthony Harris and Jeremiah Francis to step up and produce at the point guard position. I think they will. I think you're going to see Christian Keeling continue to get somewhat more comfortable in his game because he can't be more comfortable than he already is. And I think your big guys are going to give you a chance. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Carolina falls.
I'm right along the same lines with you. I think this Gonzaga team is a better overall basketball team than Carolina right now. And guess what? That's going to happen some years. That's okay. They're a really good basketball team. I think you're right. I think Carolina will definitely keep it close because, this is one of those games that going in, nobody really expects them to hang around in this game, which is a position we're not used to at all. But I feel like these guys will come out motivated. I think that this team will shoot a little bit better. It's been a real struggle the last 3 games. 3 straight not shooting over 40% from the field. That'll end. I think they'll shoot over 40% from the field. I don't know if they reach the 50% mark. I'm not bold enough to say that just yet because they're still going to struggle to shoot the basketball. That's just something we're going to have to deal with all year. But you said it. The guys inside, I think, are going to be able to keep them in this game. You look at the big-time games that the Tar Heels have won this year outside of that first game against Notre Dame. The big guys have been the reason that they've been so successful. When they play well, Carolina plays well. I think Armando Bacot and Garrison Brooks have good days, but I just don't think, like you said, I don't think it's enough to get the victory, and I think Gonzaga probably wins somewhere between 8 to 12 points, somewhere in that range, probably pulling away a little bit later on in the game.
All right, one last discussion topic before we get out of here. Cole Anthony, as we mentioned, having surgery, is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, the earliest he'd return would be in the middle of January. There's been a lot of discussion of does he shut it down and prepare for the NBA? Do you think that's the best decision for him? And if he does it, do you agree with it?
You got to think the last impression that most people are going to have of him is really, really not that great. I mean, he's going to enter the NBA. If he doesn't play a single game the rest of the way, he would enter the NBA with his last 2 games that people saw him shooting 8 for 30 from the field. So I don't know. Like, honestly, this is a guy that I think would still go pretty high, but his draft stock has dropped off just a little bit from where he was coming into Carolina in the offseason. I mean, I legitimately think that he's probably a guy that now, instead of going in the top 5, is probably a top 10 guy. But, there is a guy that has a high ceiling, but I think people have seen that, there are some things that still have to be worked out for him. So if I'm him, I think if it was the timetable was you won't be back until mid-February, maybe it would be a little bit different. The fact that he will be back in January and get to play for a good amount of the conference season, I think could lend well to Carolina and potentially put him back on the court before the season's over. Would I blame him if he shut it down? No, because you don't want to risk costing yourself a career in the NBA to play for a basketball team that, we just don't know where they're going to be at the time. That's the other thing that I think is going to play huge into this. Where is Carolina at overall and in the ACC whenever he is starting to get back to the point where he'll be able to play again? If they're in a good position to potentially, make a run and get a solid seed in the tournament, somewhere probably from a 7 seed to a 4 seed, I think he'll definitely come back. If this is a team that's probably looking at barely scrapping their way into the NCAA tournament or is on the outside looking in, I don't know if he might just decide to shut it down and save himself for the NBA.
I don't think he shuts it down because we've heard Roy Williams talk at length about the competitor he is. He's the most competitive guy he's ever had. I think that plays in a lot to his decision to come back just to play the game of basketball. But also, you're talking about a draft stock. What better way to raise your draft stock than to return to a team that's middle of the road and you get that team hot and you carry them into March and into a deep NCAA tournament run. That's the best thing for him, is to come back, and let's say Carolina is, hell, I don't know, they're 10-9 or whatever their record stacks up to be at that time, but they finish winning 10 of, they only lose 2 games down the stretch. You've built yourself into a respectable seed into March, and you're the team that everyone thought you could be going into the NCAA tournament that nobody wants to play because your matchup is not going to be favorable because you've got the best guard in the country. And what's win games in March? Guard play. You've got, in our opinion, the most complete guard in college basketball when he's playing at his level in Cole Anthony. So I think that factors into it. I don't think he wants to leave with the last thing of us seeing him is him barely getting Carolina. I mean, well, hell, the last 2 games he would have played in, they didn't even score 50 points. I don't think he wants to leave that kind of image for his one season in Chapel. It'll be something that, definitely we'll monitor and keep you up to date with on the HeelToughBlog.com. And as we shut this thing down, that's where we'll segue. We want to encourage you guys to check out the HeelToughBlog.com. A lot of stuff going on with Carolina basketball. They're out west for the week. They got Gonzaga. And then they go play UCLA in Las Vegas. We'll have you covered on all those games on the HeelToughBlog.com. Also, football season. Bowl season is getting kicked off this Friday. Carolina competes on December 27th. Noon kick for the Heels will take on Temple. More importantly, though, National Signing Day gets underway this Wednesday. Anthony will have you covered on all things coming in with all the football commits that will roll in Wednesday during the day on HeelToughBlog.com. So check out all the great stuff we got going on football and basketball-wise at our website. Once again, that's HeelToughBlog.com. Do want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcast. We're on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, you name it. You can find the Roy's Boys podcast there. Give us a like, give us a review. We'll greatly appreciate that. I want to thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Tar Heel.